Life speaks. It speaks through struggles and success, through music and messages, the preconceived and the unexpected. Whether you are in the depths of the valley or in the midst of your mountaintop experience, everyone needs to be encouraged from time to time. Here we will share stories of strength, testimonies of triumph, verses of victory, observations, and information meant to touch the heart and uplift the soul, to keep you on your path of purpose and navigate this thing called life with power and authority. This is Andrea Hines, and I'm your host for When Life Speaks, here on ALH Broadcasting, an affiliate of the Streaming Inspirational Broadcast Network. I am glad you accepted the invitation to join us tonight. There's something in this broadcast just for you, and if it is going to be a blessing to your life, it will be to someone else as well. So share, tag, start a watch party, and invite someone you know to join us. Then turn down the volume of life and get ready to receive, so that when life speaks, you'll speak life. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to When Life Speaks. We got a little bit of reverb there. I'm not quite sure where that's coming from, but I know we're going to get it straightened out very, very soon. Alan, if there's something we need to do, then just tell us and we'll get it fixed. But our listeners we got some faithful listeners, so they know we try to work things out as much as we can. So we're going to get that fixed. I think we got it. So good. Good evening to you, Ida Batts. First of all, good evening to my guest co-host there, Francina. I think you're on mute. Take yourself off mute. There you go.
Hello there, Dr. Andrea Hines. Glad to be a part of the show today.
Good to have you, Francina. And thank you for joining Ida Batts. And we've got our South Carolina connection, Angie Oliphant, on the line with us tonight. And there is Pastor Kelvin Little. Pastor Little, look at you. Good God bless you. A good God bless you tonight. Thank you for being with us. And we have a wonderful guest. We have a great show that is planned for you tonight. Usually we do something with Francina called a senior sidebar. And as we were doing that, and as we started out on that journey, we realized that the things that interested seniors were also falling under the category, if I had known then what I know now, because so many things that are of interest to our seniors and are pressing matters for them could have been avoided if we had known some things and done some things a little bit differently. So around the first part of the year, I sent out a note to the village and said, hey, what kinds of things do you want to talk about? What are the things that are of most interest to you? And one of the topics that came up was finances. So we got a guru. We got our financial advisor. She's been with us before. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about her before we bring her in. Her name is Teresa Carmi, and she is a licensed financial advisor. She moved from Des Moines, Iowa to Cary, North Carolina with her husband in 2016. Now they have 3 adult sons, and she loves to spend time making memories with them. She also volunteers to teach working but homeless families with budgeting and life management skills. She mentors 11 to 18-year-old girls. She's an active member of her church's leadership team. She leads community fundraisers, works with feeding the hungry, and still has time to read and exercise. You're on mute. Take yourself off. There you go.
Now I'm going to tell you a little bit of Teresa's bio. Many years ago, a family member took all of her savings to a financial advisor. Excited about the opportunity to begin investing, instead of applauding her initiative and guiding her next steps, the advisor laughed. She laughed at her and told her she didn't have enough money to invest. Embarrassed, she left the advisor's office. She waited more than 20 years before she asked for help with investing again. Can you imagine the financial position she would have been in 20 years later if she'd received guidance that met her at the level she was at when she first sowed? Teresa began her career at Edward Jones to do just that, to meet you where you are, and in partnership, guide you where you want to go.
I tell you what, when I first saw that and read that about Teresa, I thought that is the place that so many of us are in. We'd like to do better. We'd like to try some things, but we get turned around. We always think we have to have a lot of money in order to even get started. And we find that simply isn't true. So Francina is going to have some questions for Teresa tonight that are all about investing. And we've got some other questions from the village that we're going to be asking her. So for right now, we're going to take a little bit of a break. And when we come back, Teresa is going to be with us and we're going to talk about money matters. We'll be right back. Welcome, Teresa. So glad to have you with us tonight, everybody. If you can, I don't know if you're in a place where you can send up some hearts. If you can, do that so that we can welcome her and let her know how much we appreciate her being with us. Teresa, how are you doing this evening?
I am well, doing very well. Glad to be here today.
I tell you, we've had some challenges, but God is good, life is good, and we're gonna make it work no matter what. No matter what. We were talking before we brought you back in. Francina has a lot of questions on and not a lot, but she has questions on the investment side, and that is something that some of the village had questions about. So we kind of grouped all of those things together. But I want to just go through some of the other questions that were sent in, and you can go ahead and tell us about them. There were some things that you told us, and it's not something I want you to do right now, but I don't want to forget about it. There were some tips and some steps that you gave us the last time. And before I review those, I want to ask you one question that came in. What is the difference? And they said, maybe this is something I should know and don't. But what is the difference between a financial advisor and a financial analyst?
Well, the main difference between the two is their primary focuses, is how I would put that. A financial advisor is a person who is actually licensed to give you advice about what it is you want to invest in. An analyst is a person who's studying the data behind financials. They're not necessarily meeting face to face with clients and finding out what their goals are, determining their risk tolerance, and and putting together a customized individual strategy for you to reach specific and different goals. The
Okay.
data that a financial analyst makes available can be used by a financial advisor when they're helping to put together your plan. But
Mhm.
normally, the analyst is studying numbers and data and trends and things like that. So they just have a completely different focus. I mean, there's lots of other things too, but those would be the primary differences.
Mhm. So the advisor would be the person who sits with you and helps you to set your goals and checkpoints where those goals are and things like that. You sit
The
with
advisor is the person you're
you.
going to sit down with face to face, whether that's in person or some kind of electronic means. They're the person that's going to be asking you all the questions that might be a little uneasy to answer. Kind of like when you go to the doctor, they're asking you a gazillion questions before they can prescribe something and try to determine what it is that you need. The same thing happens with your financial advisor. They have to ask you all kinds of different questions because you can't give advice if you don't really know where they're trying to go. So it's first to figure out, where you are right now, where you're trying to get to, what you already have available to get there, the time frame that you want to arrive at whatever it is you're trying to go, and
Mhm.
then, when you get there, what kind of lifestyle is it that you want to be living? Do you want to
Mhm.
live a lifestyle that, you can live off of $2,500 in today's dollars? Or do you want to live the kind of lifestyle that you need $10,000 a month? So that takes different strategizing, that takes different planning, that takes different investments. So the advisor is going to be asking you questions about the purpose. What do you want to do? What's the purpose of this money? I'll always go back to that question because I can't give you any advice unless I know, where are we going with this? People aren't just saving money, they're saving money for a reason. And there are lots of different reasons. And for each one of those reasons, there might be different paths that we would take.
Mhm. Mhm. And you were talking about saving money, and you're saving money for a reason, and you need to know what that reason is. And somebody had sent in a question that said, when money's already tight, already tight, I'm already in debt. What are my first steps to get on a savings path?
Mm,
What are a couple of the first things that I need to do?
yeah.
Because when money's tight, you just don't see where you can save,
Yeah.
where you can put something aside. I think Teresa is having um, some issues, some technical issues there because she's freezing up on us. But one of the things I want to go over until we get her back, um, the steps to financial planning. She was saying you got to evaluate where you are today. Uh, what do you want your tomorrow to look like? Evaluating realistic goals. That's something that you have to do. And then she'll help with a strategy and solutions and strides. So go ahead, Teresa. We got you back now. I was just going over some of those financial planning strategies, but
Mhm, mhm.
we were talking about the savings issue.
Yeah, yeah. That is definitely not uncommon. I meet with a lot of people, and you'd be surprised, even people that make a ton of money. They say it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. But it
Mhm,
seems like with a lot of people, the more they make, the more they spend. So the
mhm,
first thing that I would say, or the main thing that I would say to do when money is tight, is figure out where it's going. You will have to get your arms around where those dollars are going. Have you ever
mhm,
taken, like, have maybe like a $20 bill, and as long as you got that $20 bill, you got $20. But as soon as you break that $20 bill, It's like you spend $1 here, 50 cents there, $2 there, and you look up and you're like, where did it go? That is so common. I was actually doing an annual review with a couple recently, and this couple, their income is just shy of $200,000. And when we were going through their assets, we got to the part where, your emergency savings, what do you have in savings? And I asked them the number. I'm just taking notes, and I'm looking down, I'm talking with them and taking notes. And when I said, what do you have in savings? And they said $2,000. And I looked up and I was like, $2,000? We had already determined that their minimum emergency savings based on what they spent a month needed to be, I think, $12,000 or so. And so when I I sat there and I got my calculator and I said, okay, between the two of you, you're right at $170,000. If we back out your taxes, that puts you here. And if we take your $4,000 a month that you need times 12, that puts you here. You guys should have at least 30 grand extra a year for the last 10 years. That's $300,000. Where is that going? And they looked at each other and they were quiet. And I said, there's a lot of waste going on and you guys are not seeing it because you're not tracking it. I said, I am going to ask you to begin tracking where this money is going. I'm going to send you a budget sheet and I want you to take some time, invest the time with each other, make it like a date night. You get some food, you're going to get your budget sheet, you're going to sit around the table and look into each other's eyes, and you're going to figure this thing out. Figure out where your money is going. That happens time and time again. And it's not that they don't have money, that we're investing, like they automatically have their money coming over into their IRA, into their brokerage accounts, etc. But there's a lot of waste going on. So my recommendation, if money is tight, is to begin to track it. At one point, I actually went straight to cash and I stopped doing cards. And I would say, okay, this is how much I have in cash. I'm going to put it in my wallet. I put a little regular white envelope and a pen. And every time I would spend, I wrote it on the outside of that envelope. And I would do it that way. And that way I could get control of the cash. This was years and years and 30 years or so ago. But I still recommend it to people because the statistics say when you use your credit card, you will spend twice as much as if you had cash. So cash makes you control yourself. And so I would say begin to track where your money is going. And you will be surprised. You will be so surprised at the little things that, that is spoiling the actual reserve that you have. And then once you identify it, then you can come up with a strategy for fixing it. But you got to first figure out where it's all going.
And I've heard people say too that, check your checkbook. If you tend to write checks a lot and you're not using cash, when you go back and look at your checkbook to see, where your money's going, tracking it, like you said. I just, I don't know how Kroger ever closed because I was in there 3-4 times. Kroger should definitely still be open. But that's where I found a lot of mine was going. And I discover and still work with the fact that I am, when it comes to money management, on that end, I'm horrible. I've never really grasped the whole. Now, my daughter and I can go to the grocery store. We will each spend $30. She will have food for 5 days, and I won't have a bologna sandwich.
Oh my goodness.
It's because I'll look and I'll say, oh, 2 for this or oh, 3 for that. That's why I'm not a good couponer, because I tend to buy stuff that I don't need, just because it's on sale and things like that. But I wanted to ask you one other thing, and actually I'm going to turn it over to you, Francina, because so many of our questions were around investing. I know that Angie was saying, how to make her money productive, how to make her money work for her and not just sit in a savings account with minimal growth. and how to invest. Do you need to invest? And if so, what do you invest in? But before we totally switch over, Teresa, tell me, I hear two terms a lot, and I'm not sure how different they are. One is money management, and the other is financial planning.
Mm-hmm,
What's the real difference between those two?
mm-hmm. Well, when we're talking about financial planning, that's like an overarching umbrella, and that can include money management as well. So
Okay.
money financial planning.
Okay. And what did you say? You kind of skipped out on this. What did you say about money management?
That it's one of the parts under financial planning. So think
Gotcha.
about an umbrella. You got this umbrella here, and
Mhm.
then under that, you can have money management as one of the spokes under there. So
Okay.
mhm.
Gotcha.
Now, let
Gotcha.
me ask you guys, when that's happening, are you both seeing and talking and still able to hear each other, and it's just me that's fading out? Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. And I know sometimes it's an internet thing, an internet
mhm,
connection thing that will make you freeze like that.
mhm.
Francina had it happen. And technology is wonderful as long as it's working well.
Mhm, mhm.
you know, when it doesn't want to play, it just doesn't want to play. There's nothing you can do. But we're going to try to work our way through. I think you've frozen again on us, but we're going to try to keep going. Francina, what I'm going to have you do until Teresa comes back, if you want to just share a little bit about your journey when it comes to investing and what your concerns were.
Okay. Well, and I really have a question to ask her from
No,
what you were talking about in reference to, until
She's
because
back.
I want to ask you a question first.
mhm.
What happens if your bills exceed your income?
Well, if your bills exceed your income, you got to come up with a strategy to pay those jokers off. And so the strategy that I recommend is what is called a snowball effect, right? A snowballing methodology. And so what you do is you take all of those bills, get yourself a nice sheet of paper, and you start at number one, and you list every bill from top to bottom. You take those bills and you start out and you want to have several columns. In one of the columns, you want to have the amount that you owe, the balance. In another column, you want to have the amount that you pay each month. And in the other column, you want to have the amount of interest that each of those bills is charging you. And what you want to do is you want to start with the bill with the lowest balance. So, say for instance, you got a credit card that has a $500 balance and you pay $30 a month and it has a 12% interest rate. And then you have another credit card or another bill of some sort that might be $1,000 and you pay $80 a month and it has a 6% interest rate. You want to have them lined up where the bill that has the lowest balance is at the top. So go from low to high. And then what you want to do is you want to begin paying on that bill that has the lowest balance and begin paying that. Any extra money you can find anywhere, you want to put it on that bill. And so what happens is the bill that's $500 and you got another one that's 800 balance and you got one that's 2,000 balance and you got one that's 5,000 balance. But when you pay off the one for the $500 balance, it does a couple things. One, it gives you a sense of accomplishment.
Right.
You ever gotten on a diet and you lost a pound and that made you turn away from that donut because it encouraged you? Well, that's what happens when you start to pay bills off. And so when you start with that $500 balance where you were paying $50 a month on that, when that $500 is gone, you don't have that bill anymore. Now that $50 that you were paying on that $500 bill, you take that and you add it to the next one in line. So the next one was $800 and you were paying $80 on that. So now you got the $80 from the second bill plus the $50 you no longer need to pay on the 500 because you paid it off. Now you got $130 you're able to pay on
Mm.
that second bill. And then when the $800 one is gone, now you got $130 extra to add to the third bill. And you just keep going down the list. And that's how you get them paid off.
Good advice. Good advice.
Okay. Now I have a question. Okay. Does being in debt affect your investing?
Absolutely. If you're in debt, then you really shouldn't be doing too much investing. You really want to focus on paying off those bills, because in that scenario where we were just doing the different bills, that first card was charging you 12.9% interest. The other one made 7%, another one 5. That's money that you're paying for those bills that could be going toward investing. So until you get those taken care of, you're pretty much not going to be you're not going to be in a position to make the most of your money and make your money work best for you, because you're basically throwing money away that could go to investing as long as you're carrying that debt around.
So, how is it determined what investment is best for you?
That's a great question. And that goes back to where we started at the beginning. Remember how I talked about goals and figuring out what you want your money to do? So it really depends. Like I came from a meeting in Raleigh today, and one of the investments we were looking at is CDs. And so a lot of times CDs are not looked at too much, but right now I was just talking with someone and learned that we have some new rates that are really excellent compared to some of the other credit unions and banks in the area. And if you come to me and you say, I have $1,000 and I'll use a client example. So a young lady, she came to me and she makes a really good salary, like $120,000, right? She lives in an apartment. She had 3 goals. Her first goal was she wanted to be able to buy a house, her first house, and she wanted to do that by the end of this year if possible. Her second goal was she wanted to be able to, what's her second goal? Her second goal was she wanted to be able to, oh wow, I just forgot. But she had 3 of them, and one of the goals was she wanted to be able to help her mom pay off her house. So her house, her mom's house, and then I can't remember the second one. But anyway, the point is that depending on which goal is first, a strategy would go with that goal that would not apply for the third goal. So we had to figure out the maximum amount that she could put away for the house, so she would have the down payment. And we also said, okay, if you get this house, how much do you want to spend? What's the maximum you want to spend? So when she tells me that number, then I can take that number and back into what she needs to have minimally saved. Because when we're buying the house, if we can, we want to be able to avoid paying PMI, that's private mortgage insurance. And so when you put down 20% on your home, you don't have to pay that insurance. So that's a 20% saving for 30 years. Because they, most people don't think to go back and take it off once they get their house to a certain level, their equity. So we have to do it that way. So we backed into that. And then she said, okay, this is my discretionary money. We know we need to put a minimum of this away for the house. She said, she wanted to maximize her IRA, her Roth IRA, because I explained to her there are different types of IRAs. The IRA that I want majority of my clients to focus on building is a Roth IRA. And that's because that IRA is one where the taxes are where the assets grow tax-free. Whereas in your 401k at work, or if you have a traditional 401k, the money that you're putting into those types of accounts, they are growing tax deferred. So that means they're growing, but when you get ready to use them, is when you will pay taxes on them. But if you start a Roth IRA, the money that you put into the Roth IRA is accruing and growing as well. But all of that money is for you. You don't pay Uncle Sam a dime. You don't have to worry about paying federal taxes. You don't have to worry about paying state taxes. But if you take that same number of dollars and you put it into your 401k at work, or you put it into a traditional IRA, then as it's growing, you're getting a tax break now because it looks kind of like this. Uncle Sam says, "Oh, Andrea makes $50,000 a year, but Andrea is a good girl. She's putting $5,000 into her traditional IRA. So what we're going to do is we're going to act like Andrea only makes $45,000 a year because she's putting away five. And when they act like that, Andrea is only paying taxes on $45,000 because the 5,000 has been put away. She's gotten a tax break. So that's why people do that. They get a tax break now. The money grows tax deferred. But think about it. That 5%, it takes about 7 to 10 years for money to double if it's getting a certain return, right? But if you put that away every year for 30 years, you're only putting in that 5,000, but over the years, by the time you get to 30 years later, that $5,000 is huge. And now Uncle Sam is getting a huge tax distribution from you because they gave you that minuscule tax break earlier on in the day. You got to figure out what your goals are. What's your purpose? If your purpose and goal is to have money down the road that's tax-free, that's all yours, then we need to talk about that. And that's why you got to figure out what's the goal, what's the purpose of the money, what are we trying to do here? Because once I know that, as your financial advisor, I can advise you to go down this street, turn left, down that street, turn right, down this street, back up, go around the circle and come, I can give you advice and guide you. So it's kind of like we're in the car, you're in the passenger seat, and I'm driving, and I'm telling you, you're telling me what you want, and that helps me to know how to turn and to give you the advice that you need.
That's
That's
good.
good. That's
Yeah.
good.
I like that. I like that. Yes,
That's
yes,
real
yes.
good. Okay, another question. What if a senior decided they wanted to invest? Are there specific qualifications that they need that needs to be met?
A senior?
Yeah.
Okay.
We starting now.
Yeah, sure. No, not really. There's no specific requirements that are based on the senior. We would go right back to the goal. I don't care if you're 16 or 66. What's your goal? When you're ready to invest, are you investing? What's your purpose that you're investing for? So that would tell me what you need, what your requirements are. So it would go back to the goal. What are we focusing on to do here? And then that will help me know how to help you begin to do that investing.
Because a lot of seniors, they haven't started. And so they want to start, but seniors are also on a budget, So they're like, okay, well, I know I'm of age, but I'm over age, but what can I do now? What can I give that would help me say for the next 10 or 15 years? Will it be something that I can live off of? Enjoy and do some of the things, I want to do, like travel or whatever, because I started so late.
Right. So when it comes to investing, timing is really important. How much time do you have to invest? Because if you are, say, 65, just as an example, and you're basically ready, if you're 65 and your retirement age is 67 or 70, you only have 3 to 7 years that you can actually invest. So I would not guide you to a certain type of investment because you don't have time on your side, so to speak. I would advise you to go down this path and maybe invest in some municipal bonds, some tax-free bonds, some different types of bonds like that are more risk, that have a lower level of risk than I would for a 25-year-old who has 40 years ahead of her. So she gets to 65 because she has many years for the market to go up and down and be negative and all that and come back and double up and triple up. But if you're going to need that money anytime soon, then we're not going to be putting that money into the stock market because you can't afford to lose it. You need it to grow. So we would find safer types of investments that have more guarantees. Now, realize that with anything, the more risk you take, the more return you get. The less risk you take, the less return you get. So with those fixed types of investments or more guaranteed types of investments, you will get a lot less return, but you will not have the fluctuation and volatility of being in the stock market. So that would give you peace of mind that your money is growing, but you're not going to be losing it, because we would put it into something that has like a certain guaranteed minimum amount that you would get. So we would talk about the goals and purposes of that money. And some people have, they'll come and they might be a senior and they might say, I have X dollars that, I don't need and I won't need for some time. But this money I need to keep liquid because I might need it for an emergency. I might need it in 12 months, or I might need it, in 18 months or something. And so that money, we would just, like the time frame that they need that to use that money, that will determine what type of investments make the most sense for that money.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That's good. Francina, did you have another on your list?
No.
Okay. There are a couple of things that I wanted to ask about. One still has to do with investments, Teresa. Yes, it is, Calvin. It is really good.
Hey,
And
Calvin.
Tamika, good evening to you. I saw you pop in there too.
Hey, Tamika.
I wanted to investment clubs.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when people are a little skittish about investing and not quite knowing what to do and how to do, they will seek out an investment club.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think those are a good idea, or would the same kinds of things apply, whether you're an investment club or doing the investing on your own?
Sure. I think the same things apply, because even in that investment club, you're going to have to determine as a group what the objective is. What are we trying to accomplish here? What do we want this money to do for us? When do we need it back? How much risk are we willing to take collectively? All of that. So you'd be asking basically the same types of questions. The investment club might allow you to get into larger dollar amounts in investments because you're pooling money together. But still, where that money is going, will be determined by the goals and purposes for it.
Yeah. Now I can't believe that we are 40 minutes in already. Time goes by so fast when you're getting good nuggets and good information. But I want, as we begin to wrap up, Teresa, and I tell you, every time you come, you give us things to think about. You give us strategies, whether you realize it or not. You are giving us some good strategies tonight as to how to get started and how to think what our mindset should be when we get into this thing. Because one of the things that is the biggest problem for people has to do with money, has to do with financial things. And as we get ready to close out, I want to talk about financial habits, because a lot of times we don't think about finances or money management or strategies for our money and things like that until we are making a certain amount of money, until we have a certain a job or certain kind of job. And by then we have almost already entered into overspending, not being a good steward, not practicing delayed gratification, not doing, some of those things that would help to keep us out of debt. So I am thinking that what's in your hand? We have to begin at a point of understanding what to do as soon as you are at a point of being able to get money into your hand, whether that's allowance, whether that is babysitting, whatever that happens to be. Number one, would you agree with that? And number two, what kinds of things could we start the younger ones in doing, so that by the time they get into their 30s or 40s, they're not struggling and, investing in the Kroger and all those kinds of things, but they actually have a savings and they're doing something with it.
Yeah. So the answer to number one is yes, I do agree. Absolutely, I do agree. And what we can do is really what you said, start where you are. One, I tell you, I see it so many times. Um, People don't understand the value of time. You know, they say youth is wasted on the young. Time, you can't beat it. I put together this scenario for this young lady at 18, and I told her to put away. I can't remember right now for some reason. It's been years, and your question made me think of it. It was either $100 or $200 a month, and I told her to save that money from 18 to 30, that dollar amount, and she could stop investing at 30, never put another penny into investing, and by the time she got to 65, she would be a millionaire.
Wow.
Because of time in the market. It is so critical that we teach our children and our grandchildren to get started. You got to get started. I have a client, they had their first baby recently, and they had their baby shower, and everybody brought gifts, and then they got some monetary gifts. And the first thing they did with the monetary gifts, because they were already clients, is they came over and they brought a check for that money, and they opened an account for that baby. And so when I see this little baby at church, I look at her and I say, "You don't even know it, and you're a client of mine." She's big, but she's already invested. You see?
Mhm.
So it's really important, because in the example that I was talking about, that young lady from 18 to 30 putting away that money a month, and then someone else comes when their kids are grown and they're out of the house, and they getting a certain salary, they're waiting till they make this much, they're waiting till they pay off this. They start at 45 or 50, and they put it away for 15 to 20 years more, larger amounts, and they never get to $1 million because they've lost 20, 30 years in the market. So one of the biggest things you can do is get started. Get started putting money away. And you've got to remember to pay yourself first, whether you're working for someone else or you are a business owner. Business owners, entrepreneurs are so guilty of this. They take everything that they have and they pour it into their business. And by doing that, the money is going into the business, and they're buying supplies and things like that, and they're paying for marketing. But then 30 years down the road, when they're ready to sell that business, they've lost that 30 years of accumulation of that money.
Wow.
Doubling every 10, 20, every 7 to 10 years. It could have been doubling, tripling, quadrupling, and working for them while they were also working. So one of the biggest values or assets that we have is time, and to recognize that as such, and not get caught up in the cycle of believing the hype, and that like you read my bio, Francina, that financial advisor telling that person that she didn't have enough money. She actually laughed at her. He laughed at her. It was a male. And this person worked at Sears at the time in the automotive department. And she was a young Black lady. And she worked in a suburb of Chicago. And so all of her peers that she worked with at Sears were young people just like her in their teens, but they were all white. And so they were always talking about investments. And so here, this young Black girl hears all these people talking about investing. So she thinks, well, it's good. You want to learn from people, right? So she thinks, I need to go invest. So she takes her savings, goes to this financial advisor, and he laughs at her. And she, like I said in my bio, she left there and she did not invest, talk to another advisor for 20 years. 7 times 3, that's one. If she had 10,000, 7 years later, that 10,000 would have been 20,000, and another 10 years, 7 to 10 years, of that 20,000 would have been 40,000. So in that period of time, she literally could have taken $10,000 to about $40,000 to $50,000, just that little bit. So it's really important to get started, and don't be discouraged, but really get your arms around the debt, really get your arms around that, and just come up with a strategy. Figure out what you want to do and then come up with a way to do it.
I tell you what, Teresa, this has been great, 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 great tonight. I am so glad that you had time on your schedule to come back to When Life Speaks and drop some more nuggets on us and help us to
Absolutely.
do better. And it's not just for us, guys. And that's the thing. And that's the thing about Senior Sidebar. And we're always, always in a place where we can learn, and it's what we learn is not just for us, it is for us to teach the generations behind us and help them to have better strategies than we had, to help them to have better habits than we had, help them to stay out of debt. And one time we're going to have you on, we're going to talk about some of those debt traps, because there are some things that trap and trip us up, that we don't even realize are happening. But thank you so much for
Absolutely.
being with us tonight. Francina, thank you for being here as well. And of course, all of our listeners that tuned in. And
This
if you weren't able to do it tonight, we have a replay on Saturdays at noon. You can go back and replay. You can share it with somebody, and make sure that, if you've got family members or whatever, sit down and listen to it together, so that you all will both be able to prosper and to be able to do better with our money management. So again, thank you so much, Teresa. If you could just hang out there with us for just a little bit. And
Absolutely.
everybody else, where you're going to be next Thursday night at 7 p.m. You're going to be right back here for When Life Speaks. We are going to be finishing up our discussion about toxic relationships and when it's time to go. So you don't want to miss that. So come back next week and be right here. Turn down the volume of life and get ready to receive, so that when life speaks, you'll speak life. Good night, everybody.